closed and locked, and I'm not the kind of person to let a locked gate stop me. So we pulled around to the back to walk through this other park to get to the botanical garden. And so we get to the botanical garden, and it's flooded, and there is a huge tree collapsed in the middle of it. Hey, so I know I don't look good right now. I don't feel good right now. I feel weird, on edge, agitated. This morning was a lot. I go out and I'm walking my dog, and we pass the Starbucks in town. And in the parking lot, this woman runs up to me wanting to use my phone to call the sheriff because she had just run out of her house without anything because this creepy ex-guy had been holding her captive in her home for the past 2 days and abusing her. And so, like, yes, of course. And she even had the sheriff's phone number memorized, which was good because I only had city police memorized, but I guess we're far enough outside the city that the city police don't come here. So we called the sheriff, and I'm like, well, do you want to go back to my house? Do you want to go sit at Starbucks? And she's like, oh, let's go sit at Starbucks because I don't want this guy causing you any trouble. I'm like, he's not going to find us if we go to my house, and he's not going to cause any trouble. So we sit at the Starbucks, wait, and I get another guy to come and sit with us outside the Starbucks, just to be kind of protective. And then the guy comes up, finds us at the Starbucks because of course he would. It's like the logical place that someone would go. And so she goes inside. The guy that we're sitting with goes inside with her. And I'm sitting out there with dog. You've seen my dog, you know, he's big and looks kind of scary, even though he is literally scared of everything. So this guy comes up and he sees her inside the Starbucks. And before he gets to the door, I walk up to him. Or no, before he gets to the door, I'm sitting at the table next to the door and I say, I don't think you should go in there. And he looks at me and he looks back inside. And so I stand up and I approach him. And I'm like, I think you need to be moving along now. Doesn't budge. I take another step towards him. I think you need to be moving along now. And he finally starts like walking backwards a few steps. And I'm like, I think you need to be moving along now. Like 3 times I had to say this before he finally turned around and walked off. Well, the sheriff shows up before he even gets like to the end of the block. And they have his description, so they know who this guy is. And I guess he runs because the sheriff's like, they turn around, they go and stop the cars in the middle of the street, jump out and get this guy, and he's on the ground. And I don't know, resisting or what, fighting back or something, but he gets like, he gets kind of like hit, beat, roughed up quite a bit. They're holding him there. They call like ambulance or whatever. And by then, some other sheriff cars come up and they come and, talk to the lady. So I am like out of there as fast as I can because this is unbelievable. I put a hoodie on over my pajamas to walk the dog at dawn, and this is what's going on, and I'm dealing with, a serious domestic violence issue where this woman has, restraining order against him, and sheriff's deputies, and like honestly, I don't think I'm ever going to that Starbucks again, because like, I mean, I'm glad I was able to help this woman and chase this guy off, but like, I don't need this shit in my life. I've got enough of my own problems to deal with without having, you know, all of that. I wanted to talk a little bit more about what happened now that I've had time to reflect on it. Some of you might know that I come from a very rough background. My father was massively abusive. I left home at 16, and so issues of domestic violence are very important and sensitive to me. And so when I encountered a woman in need, of course, I stepped up. And I'm far enough away from the situation. My father's been dead for a few years. I've cut off contact with his whole family. And, you know, there's enough distance there that I feel like I can get more involved, but I also still kind of feel like I kind of suffer greatly for my involvement. This especially, like standing up to the abuser, getting up in his face physically and telling him to leave this woman alone, was, of course, very natural and instinctive for me to do, but also triggering, really. You know, I've reached a point in my healing where I don't really have the kind of fear that I used to have. And I find that in particular, women are taught to fear men and to fear men's power, when these guys, a lot of them are pretty weak and easily intimidated. And, you know, part of the reason why I'm not identifying as a woman anymore, because I don't want to identify with these kinds of, you know, abusive social patterns of, you know, being in relationships with men that have, you know, this sort of fear power thing going on. And so I, you know, instinctively didn't really think of fear or feel fear, but afterwards, of course, everything, all the old stuff kind of came back up. And I've done a lot of work with fear. This is something that my guru does in the programs. There is an entire course, the chakra course. One of the chakras, the Manipuraka chakra, deals with fear and cleansing the fear from your system. I can put links to that. The book, Guaranteed Solutions, covers that, and I'll link you to the YouTube video of the course. Because when we really interrogate our fears and look at what we fear and why, we see that they don't really have anything to them, or if they do, the fear all goes back to a fear of death. So, for example, you're afraid of snakes or spiders, and it's because, well, why are you afraid of snakes or spiders? What do you think is going to happen? You know, I'm afraid I'll get bitten and I'll get sick and I'll die. Okay, so maybe you're afraid of public speaking. What specifically is happening there? Well, I'm afraid that if I, you know, humiliate myself, I'll lose my status in society and become nothing and I'll die. You know, when you interrogate all of your fears, either there's nothing there or it all leads back to a fear of death. And, you know, living in the ashram and being a sannyasi, I don't really feel that fear anymore. I don't really have those kinds of fears. But of course, you know, the old trauma is still there, and it does get triggered. Even though I can face these situations very fearlessly, I do still suffer from, you know, the sort of the body's instinctual kinds of response. And that's something, you know, an ongoing thing to work on, doing physical work, yoga, and yeah.